When a Bugatti Chiron worth $4 million crashes into an Isuzu delivery truck for just 3 seconds, nobody expects what happens next. Not the owner, not the insurance company, and certainly not Bugatti Automobiles itself. This is the story of a decision made by engineers in France that would echo across the internet. It's about what happens when one person decides that a corporation's verdict doesn't have to be final. And it's about why that decision matters to all of us. On a Miami street in 2021, Alex G. was driving one of only 60 Bugatti Chiron Per Sport models ever built, chassis number 795276. The car had cost him $4 million. For a moment, just 3 seconds, something went wrong. His car collided with a delivery truck at low speed. The kind of accident that would leave a dent on any normal vehicle. A trip to the repair shop, maybe a few thousand in damage. Back on the road by next week. But this wasn't a normal vehicle. The Bugatti Chiron Per Sport is engineered to exceed 420 kilometers per hour. Every component is built to withstand forces that most cars will never experience. The body is carbon fiber. The frame is a specialized monocoque that has been tested and refined for years. When that 3-second collision transferred its force through the chassis, something happened that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Alex G. took the car to a dealership. Bugatti sent a team of technicians from France to Miami to inspect it. They spent days examining the carbon fiber structure under magnification. They ran diagnostics. They measured stress points. And then they reached a conclusion that would change everything. The car was a total loss. This decision wasn't about money. Yes, the exterior damage was severe. The front left fender was shattered. The headlight assembly was destroyed. The front bumper was crumpled beyond recognition. But Bugatti's engineers weren't primarily concerned with those visible wounds. They were worried about something invisible, microscopic cracks, structural weaknesses that couldn't be detected by eye but could fail catastrophically at high speeds. For a vehicle designed to operate at the absolute edge of what's physically possible, any compromise to integrity wasn't acceptable. It was a safety risk. It was a liability. It was unacceptable. So Bugatti made a decision. They placed the car's VIN on a global blacklist. This wasn't a minor administrative action. This was the automotive equivalent of a death sentence. The blacklist meant that Bugatti would not sell replacement parts for this chassis. Authorized dealers were forbidden from touching it. The car was erased from the official system. As far as the company was concerned, this vehicle no longer existed. To reinforce this decision, Bugatti provided the insurance company with a repair estimate. It was staggering. $93,000 for a grille, $116,000 for a pair of headlights, $50,000 for the carbon fiber hood, $400,000 for the 2 front fenders. Just the exterior parts exceeded $1.7 million. That didn't include labor. That didn't include what might be hidden inside. The total cost to restore this vehicle to factory condition would have exceeded $3 million. Maybe more. For Alex G., this became a nightmare. He was obligated to make monthly payments of $90,000 on a $4 million asset he couldn't drive, couldn't touch, and couldn't legally repair. The insurance company would pay out the depreciated value, but that left him owing money on a car that was becoming increasingly worthless with each passing month. Bugatti's official recommendation was clear. Sell it for scrap. Have it dismantled. Forget it ever existed. But the car wasn't destroyed. Instead, it was sold at auction to a company that specialized in purchasing damaged high-end vehicles. And there it sat, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to try the impossible. Matt Armstrong was scrolling through the internet when he saw a listing for a blacklisted Bugatti Chiron. Most people would have looked away. Matt saw an opportunity. He ran a YouTube channel called B is for Build, where he documented the process of restoring wrecked supercars. He'd worked on damaged Lamborghinis. He'd rebuilt crashed Ferraris. But he'd never attempted anything like this. A car that had been officially condemned by the manufacturer itself. A car that couldn't be repaired through official channels. A car that existed in a legal and technical gray area that nobody had ever successfully navigated. For Matt, that was exactly the point. He flew from his home in the United Kingdom to Miami in late 2022 to inspect the vehicle in person. When he arrived at the lot, he saw the 2 halves of the Chiron sitting separated on a flatbed. The collision had been so severe that the car was already partially disassembled. He walked around it. He examined the damage. And something clicked. He could see the problem. He could see how to solve it. And he believed he could do it. Matt purchased a vehicle and arranged to have it transported to a workshop he rented near Chicago. When the two halves arrived, he began the process of taking it completely apart. Every bolt, every component, everything had to come out so he could understand the true extent of the damage. What he discovered shocked even him. The low-speed collision had caused damage that was far more serious than the impact itself suggested. The force of the crash had pushed the engine and transmission assembly forward by just a few millimeters, a distance so small it would have been invisible to a casual observer. But for a machine operating at the edge of physical limits, those few millimeters created immense stress. The stress had created a critical crack in one of the main aluminum engine mounts, the component that bolted the W16 engine directly to the carbon fiber chassis. This was the fatal flaw that Bugatti's engineers had identified. This was why they condemned the car. According to Bugatti specifications, this cast aluminum part couldn't be repaired. The only solution was to replace the entire rear subframe and possibly rebuild sections of the monocoque itself, a job that would cost over $1 million and could only be performed at a factory in Molsheim, France. But as Matt continued to disassemble the car, he made another discovery, something that would later become symbolic of the entire project. He began finding parts that weren't uniquely Bugatti. Electrical connectors marked with Volkswagen logos, sensors that came from Audi vehicles, switches that were identical to those used in a Volkswagen Jetta diesel. It was a reminder that even a $4 million hypercar was ultimately an assembly of components. Some of those components were engineered specifically for Bugatti, but many of them were standard industrial parts manufactured by the Volkswagen Group and marked up thousands of times over once they were placed inside a Bugatti box. This was the hypercar tax in its purest form, the cost of exclusivity, the price of the badge. Matt now faced the core technical challenge. He needed to repair the cracked engine mount, which many needed to completely separate the front and rear sections of the car. Bugatti had claimed this was impossible without specialized equipment. The Chiron is built with modular design where the front section is the carbon fiber passenger compartment and the rear section is a massive subframe containing the W16 engine, transmission, and suspension. To separate them perfectly and then reassemble them to sub-millimeter tolerances required, according to Bugatti, a multi-million-dollar alignment jig. Only 2 facilities in the world had this equipment. Matt Armstrong didn't have access to either one, so he invented a different method using the tools available in his workshop. He and his team placed the car on a standard 2-post automotive lift. They positioned a large plastic trash can with wheels directly underneath the heavy rear engine assembly. They stacked pieces of wood between the trash can and the subframe, creating a simple but stable temporary support system. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't the kind of equipment Bugatti used, but it would work. They then disconnected everything that connected the two halves. They discovered that the entire rear section was held to the front monocoque by just 14 large titanium bolts. They removed these bolts one by one. They disconnected the electrical wiring. They disconnected the coolant hoses, the oil lines, the hydraulic systems, everything. Then came the moment that none of them would ever forget. Matt's team slowly raised the automotive lift. The front half of the Chiron, resting on the lift's arms, began to move upward. The rear half, with its massive 16-cylinder engine, remained stationary on top of the plastic trash can. As the distance between them increased, something extraordinary happened. The entire back half of the Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, a vehicle that cost $4 million, rolled smoothly across the garage floor on the wheels of a plastic trash can. In an ordinary workshop using basic tools, Matt Armstrong had successfully performed a procedure that the manufacturer claimed was impossible without exclusive technology. With the car separated, the team had full access to the cracked aluminum engine mount. Instead of replacing it, Matt sought out a local expert welder named Bob. Bob examined the crack and identified the aluminum alloy, a high-strength aerospace-grade material commonly used in aircraft construction. He used a precise welding technique called TIG welding to carefully repair the crack. But he didn't stop there. To ensure the repair would hold, Bob welded additional pieces of aluminum alloy around the damaged area. These reinforcements would help distribute stress more evenly. The engine mount wouldn't just be restored to its original condition. It would be improved. A component that Bugatti had condemned as worthless had been brought back to life through human skill and careful engineering. As Matt documented this process in YouTube videos, something unexpected happened. The videos went viral. Millions of people watched a British mechanic do something that a global corporation claimed was impossible. The story spread across the internet. It reached tech forums. It reached automotive communities. And eventually, it reached the desk of Matt Armstrong, the CEO of the newly formed company Bugatti Rimac. Most corporate executives would have responded with a cease and desist letter. Matt Armstrong chose a different path. He sent a direct personal message to Matt Armstrong. Not a threat, not a formal legal notice. A professional conversation between two people who both understood engineering. Rimac explained Bugatti's concerns from a physics perspective. He pointed out that a 1,500 horsepower car is more like an airplane on the ground than a typical automobile. Precision matters. Alignment matters. At high speeds, tolerances that seem trivial can become catastrophic. He acknowledged Matt's skill. He also outlined the serious risks involved. It was respectful, it was thoughtful, and it changed everything. Shortly after their exchange, Bugatti took an unprecedented step. They removed the Chiron's VIN from the global blacklist. They offered to provide Matt with technical data and safety-critical parts to ensure the car was reassembled correctly. This was a quiet acknowledgement of the project's legitimacy. This was a quiet victory. With this unofficial blessing from Bugatti's leadership, Matt continued his work. But his goal had evolved beyond simple restoration. He wanted to give the car a unique character. One of the common criticisms of the standard Bugatti Chiron is that its W16 engine sounds subdued. The factory exhaust system is restrictive, designed to meet global noise and emissions regulations. It muffles the raw sound of 16 cylinders working together. Matt decided to change that. He removed the entire factory exhaust system and partnered with a company called Valvetronic Designs to create something completely different. The new system was made entirely of lightweight titanium. It featured a high-flow X-pipe design and ended in 6 exhaust tips instead of the original 4. There were no mufflers to dampen the sound. When the rebuilt Chiron roared to life for the first time, everyone in the workshop heard something they'd never heard before. The raw, unfiltered sound of all 16 cylinders working together. No restraint, no refinement, just pure mechanical power. It was more than a modification. It was a statement. Bugatti had engineered a car that balanced extreme performance with ultimate luxury. Matt had stripped away the luxury to focus on the extreme performance. He'd created something that celebrated the direct connection between human and machine. During the final stages of reassembly, something happened that no one could have scripted. It was too perfect, too symbolic, too meaningful to be mere chance. While tightening one of the 14 main titanium bolts that hold the two halves of the car together, the bolt suddenly snapped. According to Bugatti's official procedure, Matt would have needed to order a replacement directly from the company. It would have taken weeks. It would have cost hundreds of dollars, maybe more. Instead, Matt researched the bolt specifications. He found the thread pitch. He identified the exact grade of titanium required. And he found an industrial supplier online that sold an identical bolt. The cost was $11. A few days later, the bolt arrived. It fit perfectly. It was tightened to the correct torque specification. It performed its job flawlessly. This single moment became the most powerful symbol of the entire project. An $11 bolt from an online supplier had replaced an exclusive proprietary part on a $4 million hypercar. In that moment, the entire mythology of exclusivity collapsed. The car was just an assembly of physical parts. Those parts obeyed the laws of physics, not the laws of marketing. It was a clear demonstration of something the world was just beginning to debate: the right to repair. The idea that when you buy something, you should have the right to fix it. You should have the right to modify it. You should have the right to understand how it works. When the rebuilt Chiron was finally complete, something remarkable happened. The project created a divide in the automotive world. Two camps formed, each with passionate convictions. The traditionalist camp included Bugatti collectors and factory engineers. They argued that Matt's work had compromised cars' integrity. They questioned whether a vehicle repaired outside of the manufacturer's controlled environment could ever be truly safe at high speeds. They said the value of a Bugatti lies in its originality, its history, its factory certification. The other camp included Matt's millions of YouTube followers, independent mechanics, and advocates for the right to repair. They saw Matt as someone who had the courage to stand up to a corporate system that prioritized control over ownership. They celebrated his ingenuity, his problem-solving, his determination. In their view, the rebuilt Chiron was now more valuable than a standard one, not because it was in perfect condition, because it carried the story of persistence, the triumph of individual skill over corporate restriction. The debate wasn't confined to online forums. It had real-world consequences. Many believe that the project influenced Bugatti's direction under Mattei Rimac's leadership. The successor to the Chiron, the Bugatti Tourbillon, was later unveiled with a naturally aspirated V16 engine and an instrument cluster crafted by Swiss watchmakers. The design was a deliberate move toward mechanical authenticity and emotional connection, an acknowledgement that the value of a hypercar lies not in raw numbers, but in the physical connection between driver and machine, the very connection that Matt's project had celebrated. The story of Chiron number 795,276 ultimately raises questions that extend far beyond automotive repair. If you pay millions of dollars for a product, should the manufacturer have the final say in how you use it? Where should the line be drawn between guaranteed safety and ownership freedom? These aren't just questions for car enthusiasts. They're questions that will shape the future of technology ownership for all of us. They're questions about power, about control, about who really owns the things we buy. When Matt Armstrong placed that first bolt into the cracked engine mount and began to weld, he wasn't just fixing a car. He was making a statement that said, we have the right to understand what we own. We have the right to fix what we've purchased. We have the right to take something that's been marked for death and bring it back to life. Bugatti's blacklist had been a digital kill switch. Matt's hands, and the hands of Bob the welder, and the hands of everyone on that team, prove that such switches don't have to be final. That knowledge and skill and determination can override corporate verdicts. That there's a difference between breaking the rules and breaking free from unjust ones. The Bugatti Chiron still exists. It still roars with that unmuffled sound. And somewhere on the internet, millions of people are still watching it run. Not because it's perfect, but because it represents something that matters. A reminder that in a world of increasingly complex products, human ingenuity still matters. That the right to understand and repair what we own is worth fighting for.